Two people walk into the same office on the same day, same starting salary, same degree, same age. 24 years old, both of them, nervous in new shoes that still feel stiff. 10 years later, one of them owns a home outright and has a stock portfolio, quietly compounding in the background. The other is still renting, still waiting for a raise that will finally let them start saving, still telling themselves that next year is the year it changes. Same income, same opportunities, completely different outcomes. That gap is not luck. It's not some secret only rich families pass down. And it's definitely not intelligence. Some of the worst money decisions in history were made by very smart people. The gap comes from a handful of quiet, almost invisible choices made in your 20s. Choices that feel small at the time. Choices nobody warns you about because they don't look dangerous. They look normal. This is the story of why that gap exists. And by the end, you'll probably recognize yourself somewhere in it. Let's call her Maya, 23. First real paycheck hits her account, and something happens that happens to almost everyone. The number looks bigger than it is. Not because the math is wrong, because for the first time in her life, nobody's checking. No parent asking where the money went. No student budget forcing her hand. Just her, a debit card, and a city full of things that are suddenly, technically affordable. She upgrades her apartment, nothing crazy, just a nicer one. Closer to work, the kind with a gym downstairs she'll use twice. She starts ordering food more, not every night, just enough that it stops feeling like a treat and starts feeling like Tuesday. None of these decisions, on their own, ruin anything. That's the trick. That's exactly why it works. If someone told Maya at 23 that she'd spend $200,000 over the next decade on conveniences she barely remembers, she'd have laughed. But nobody adds it up in real time. It just leaks out. $5, $40, $120, invisible until it isn't. There's a name for this. Lifestyle inflation. Every time income goes up, spending quietly rises to meet it, and sometimes to pass it. And the cruel part is that it doesn't feel like a mistake while it's happening. It feels like living. Now picture the other version. Same salary, same city, different roommate. Call him Theo. Theo doesn't do anything that looks impressive. He doesn't day trade. He doesn't discover some secret stock. He just does one boring thing before anything else touches his account. A chunk of every paycheck moves automatically into an investment account he barely thinks about. He still goes out, still buys the sneakers sometimes. He's not living like a monk. The difference is order. Maya spends first and saves whatever's left, which some months is nothing. Theo saves first and spends what's left, which means the saving actually happens. Every single time, whether he feels motivated or not. Motivation is not reliable. That's the part nobody wants to hear. Waiting until you feel disciplined enough to save money is like waiting until you feel like going to the gym. Some weeks you will, most weeks you won't, and your future doesn't care about your mood. By the time both of them turn 30, Theo hasn't done anything heroic. He's just never had to make the decision to save. He removed the decision, and removing the decision is quietly one of the most powerful things a 20-something can do with their money. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, though, because lifestyle creep isn't even the biggest reason people fail to build wealth young. It's just the most visible one. The bigger one is fear, specifically fear of the stock market. Somewhere along the way, a lot of people in their 20s absorb this idea that investing is gambling, that it's for people who already have money, that putting cash into the market is risky, and the safe thing, the responsible thing, is to just let it sit in a savings account until you understand it better. So it sits there, and it sits there. And 5 years pass, and the money that could have doubled has earned almost nothing because a savings account barely keeps up with inflation. Meanwhile, the very thing they were avoiding, the market, has usually gone up over that same stretch, not in a straight line, but up. The irony is brutal. The instinct to play it safe by avoiding investing is often the riskiest decision of all because doing nothing has a cost too. It's just a silent one. Nobody sends you a bill for the money you didn't make. And the 20s matter here more than any other decade for one simple, unglamorous reason: time. Money invested at 25 has 40 years to grow before retirement. Money invested at 35 has 30. That missing decade isn't a small gap. Depending on returns, it can be the difference between retiring comfortable and retiring anxious. Compounding doesn't care how smart you are, it only cares how long you give it. There's a third trap, and this one's sneakier than the first two, because it doesn't look like failure, it looks like ambition. Call it the comparison spiral. Somebody in your feed just bought a house. Somebody else is posting from a beach in Bali. Again, someone from your old college group just got promoted to a title that sounds impressive, even though nobody's totally sure what it means. And somewhere in your chest, a quiet pressure starts building, a feeling that you're behind, that everyone figured out some formula you missed. Here's what that feeling doesn't tell you. Most of what you're seeing isn't wealth, it's spending. The beach photo doesn't show the credit card balance. The new car doesn't show the 60-month loan behind it. People in their 20s are often broke and look rich, while the people quietly building actual wealth tend to look completely unremarkable, because looking rich and being rich pull money in opposite directions. But that pressure does real damage anyway, because it pushes people toward decisions made for an audience instead of decisions made for a future. The car gets upgraded to keep pace. The vacation gets booked to keep pace. And keeping pace with people whose finances you can't actually see is one of the fastest ways to guarantee you'll still be starting from zero at 35. Let's go back to Maya for a second, because her story doesn't end at the sad part. Something shifts for her around 28. It's not dramatic. There's no single moment of clarity, no crying on the bathroom floor scene like the movies would have it. It's smaller than that. She's helping a friend move apartment, and the friend, someone younger than her, someone who never made as much money, mentions offhand that she just hit a 5-figure number in her retirement account. And Maya does the math on her own account. And the number is embarrassing, not because she's a failure, because she realizes, sitting there on a stack of moving boxes, that she was never actually behind on income. She was behind on decisions. And decisions can change starting today, in a way that income sometimes can't. So she does something almost anticlimactic. She sets up one automatic transfer, not a huge one. She can't undo 8 years of habits in a week, just enough to start. And she cancels 2 subscriptions she forgot she had. And that's it. That's the whole turning point. No spreadsheet epiphany, no extreme budget, just one small structural change that removes the decision the same way it worked for Theo. It's slower for her than it would have been at 23. She knows that. But slower and moving is still infinitely better than standing still and comfortable. There's one more piece to this, and it might be the most important one, because it explains why so many smart, capable people still end up in Maya's early position instead of Theo's. Nobody teaches this stuff, not properly. You can graduate with honors, walk across a stage, shake a dean's hand, and still have absolutely no idea what a compound interest curve actually looks like in practice, or what the difference is between a Roth account and a traditional one, or why an index fund tends to beat most people who try to pick individual stocks. School teaches you how to earn a paycheck. It rarely teaches you what to do with it once it lands. So people default to whatever's around them. If the people around you talk about investing casually, the way some families talk about it at dinner, you absorb it early, and it stops feeling scary. If nobody around you talks about it, you inherit the silence instead, and the whole subject stays wrapped in this vague, uneasy mystery well into your 30s. That's not a character flaw. It's an environment problem. But here's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath it. At some point, waiting for someone to teach you stops being a reasonable excuse. The information exists. It's free. It's sitting in libraries and on phones in everyone's pocket. The people who close that gap aren't the ones who had better teachers. They're the ones who got tired of not knowing and went and found out. So if you're looking for the actual answer, the real reason most people don't build wealth in their 20s, it was never one big mistake. Nobody blows up their future in a single afternoon. It's the slow accumulation of small, forgivable choices, spending that quietly rises with income, fear dressed up as caution, a decade of comparison dressed up as ambition, and a subject nobody ever sat them down and actually explained. None of that is permanent. That's the part worth sitting with. Maya's story didn't end at 28 with regret. It kept going, just on a different slope than it would have on day one. The version of you reading this right now, whatever age you are, whatever your account balance says, that version still gets to choose which slope comes next. The two people who walked into that office on the same day, at the same age, with the same paycheck, they never had different odds. They just made different decisions one Tuesday at a time for years, without anyone watching. Nobody's watching you either, which means nobody's stopping you.